Welcome to Trial by Wine. We take a closer look at crimes that highlight how fascinating humans can be. Schmitty, Swanny and Clarkey visit crimes and run them through their jury of three, debating both sides of the case to agree an appropriate, if totally fictitious, sentence. Please be advised, Trial by Wine may include explicit or disturbing content and will include drunken rambling. Listener discretion is advised. All right, how are we?
Very well.
I'm very well, thank you. Yes, very well.
Good. Let's introduce ourselves. I'm Schmitty.
I'm Swanny.
And I'm Clarkey. And together we are Trial by Wine.
And what are we drinking
Effortless.
this episode?
Go on, Swanny.
No.
It's because I think Swanny's going to take the lead on this story, so I suspect she wanted to remain sober. Yeah.
Yes.
And I can understand
But
that.
I know what I've got lined up for the next one.
Okay. What about you, Clarkey?
Oh, no.
Well, I've got a whole selection. So because we're recording back-to-backs, I've got some leftover beer from my last one. And then after that, we're going to have some wine. But we do actually have this thing that I often say I don't know what it is, but it's called leftover wine because we started drinking wine.
Have you ever had that in your house before?
If there is leftover wine in our house, it's definitely been a more than probably 2 or 3 bottle night. So this is left over from one of those. And then we've got another bottle, which is just our lovely little Aldi Loire Valley Rosé that we enjoy. I'll be progressing through all of these, which means I'll get louder and more obnoxious as the episode goes on. So I keep an eye out for that.
Excellent. Well, I'm on my second mango chutney. And as you can see, I've only had a couple of sips of this one, so I'm still quite tidy.
Well, you've got some.
I'm sure you'll pick up the pace now.
Well, because I had to do the story, right? But I'm like Swanny, you got to keep yourself neat when you're going to tell the story. Yeah.
I think some of these stories there's so many parts, and I find it really hard to share a story when you're using so many sources of it. It's never just from point A to point B. It's trying to pull all the other things in. It's like, oh my God. There's a lot to say quite often.
I agree. In the last one, I think what made it difficult was I was pulling all, I did a lot of quoting of testimony and like literally what people had said. Mm-hmm. That was in different sources. So I had to go and find that and put that back in.
That's always hard,
against the chronological stuff. And even the chronology, like even in that, you asked a couple of questions in that, Clarkey, about, so when did he get interviewed and when did this happen in relation to her disappearance and that sort of stuff. It jumped around an awful lot in terms of time. So and I'd be like, hang on, when did we find out about the viewer belonging to him? And it was 8 days after her body had been found. So we didn't know that initially. And so it's like, so I was trying to work out, when did they make the connection to him with the original attack? So I found that quite tricky to do. But anyway, hopefully I got it right. I'm sure someone will tell me if I didn't. So Swanny, you're up. What have you got for us?
I'm up. Okay, so first of all, my sources are before I forget. Wikipedia, which I didn't have to, no, I was not, so use it. allthat'sinteresting.com, the Daily Mail, and then a YouTube, I don't know if it's whether you call it a channel or a show, it was called Mobile Instinct. And then also on YouTube, something called That Chapter. So that's basically what I'd used.
Yeah, I was going to say there are a solid list of sources, good stock standard, reputable ones. Wikipedia, all that's interesting,
There's nothing too highbrow in there, I'll have you know.
Daily Mail.
Yes, but just trying to pull sort of the colour of the story together, I think sometimes is where the challenge lies, because different sources focus on different aspects of the story. And sort of, I guess, the reveal of this is how, there's a crime committed and then how it comes to light who's responsible for that. And, in reading one article, it looks like it's played out a certain way. Then I read something else, it looks like it's played out a slightly different way. So what I've tried to look at it is from a chronological point of view. So at least I'm trying to be accurate on that level, because different sources see it in a slightly different way, or what's important, or what moments were more important. We will get to that. So Today I'm going to share with you the story of Skylar Neese. And Skylar was born in February of 1996.
Ooh.
And she was born in West Virginia. So she was born in a place called Morgantown, and she ended up sort of living, I think that was probably the main hub, and she ended up living her life in a place called Star City, West Virginia, which seems like a funny name, doesn't it? Sounds like something you'd expect to be somewhere near Vegas or something, not somewhere in West Virginia. So I did have a look to see if I could find out why on earth it was called that, and it was based on a glass company that had been there, Star Glass Company, and I think it must have been the biggest employer, when the town was amalgamated or whatever else. So there you go, this sort of place in not quite rural West Virginia, but just a small town called Star City. It just seems like a bit of a oddity. Skylar is born to parents Mary and Dave Neese. She's an only child, and I think they live a very sort of normal life. They live in a small apartment. Both her parents work. I don't think they're particularly well off, but I think that they have a modest but comfortable life. And by all accounts, Skylar is a loving daughter. She's full of energy. She is, a good student. It says she's an honour student, but whenever I read that, I'm not entirely sure just how highbrow that is compared to what we would think that is in Australia. I think it just means above average. Perhaps it means more. I don't really know, but I think it sounds really important if you're an honour student in Australia, but I think it's a little bit more common in the US. So in second grade, Skylar Neese meets her lifelong friend, Shelia Eddy, and they were firm friends from the get-go. And my understanding is that they were both only children, so I suspect that there was a special connection there for the girls. They began high school together in 2010, and at high school they met the third musketeer, a girl they befriended called Rachel Schoaf. I think that's how I pronounce it. It looks like loaf with an SH on it, so I'm going to call it Schoaf.
Nailed it, I reckon.
So in their freshman year, they meet her, and she's an aspiring actress and singer and a very vivacious girl with, she likes the arts, so you could imagine the kind of girl that she is, and the three of them seem to have this really tight friendship, and although they're all slightly different, they seem to have come together and have, they're quite a little clique. So we've got Skylar, Sheila, her eldest friend from, grade 2, and then the new girl, Rachel, who is slightly different. She is from a slightly more affluent family, not massively, but certainly markedly so from the other girls. And she's from a Catholic family that is quite observant, and her house rules are, I think, significantly stricter, certainly than Sheila's and more so than Skylar. So I think that with the other two girls, she certainly sees how to sort of live life a little bit more and push boundaries and perhaps be a little bit more able to push the rules, bend the rules. So the three girls start hanging out, and as the year sort of progresses, so does their behaviour. So nothing terrible. And I think it was totally what was going on where they went to school with the type of kids in the school they were in. They were sort of drinking alcohol, smoking weed, skipping school, breaking curfews. They were, pushing boundaries is what I would think. They had one of them certainly had a driver's license, and there's loads and loads of footage of the girls where they'd film themselves. I wouldn't quite say being rat bags, but they were so confident and of that age where, you think that you are invincible and you're the coolest, and you've got your clique, you've got your little girlfriends. They were really, well, to be perfectly honest, they looked like they were out of a teen movie, and they were mean girls because of the way they were so, that little bit of sass, because they're comfortable. They were popular, but not overly popular. They were probably doing pretty well in the social structure of school. And my understanding is that of the three girls, Sheila was viewed as being a little bit more controlling and perhaps a little bit more in charge than the other two. And people commented that they didn't necessarily like the way that Rachel and Skylar would behave when they were around Sheila, because Sheila was quite a little bit more mean, a little bit more controlling. So some of their friends and their wider friends would just kind of avoid the three girls together. They were just a little bit too much, and they saw that Sheila's influence was not always a nice thing. So they just sort of,
she's the Regina George of this story?
Well, she might well be. She's certainly...
You can't sit here.
I don't know that she was like that necessarily, but I think, maybe. She was definitely... there's no sort of suggestion that they were the most popular girls or anything like that or particularly close, but within
in
their own group. And the way they made other people feel.
That's right.
They were pretty confident, you know what I mean? They had all sorts going on. Things were going smashingly for the three of them. They were certainly having a ripe old time. And then when they were in their sophomore year, which I believe is year 10, I had to Google that to check. So this is now late summer of 2011. There was a sleepover. And at that sleepover, Rachel and Sheila had drunken sex with each other. And Skylar was there to see that. And that sleepover ends with Skylar and Sheila having an argument. And that starts a rift for the girls. That is the moment where things make quite a marked shift. And the way they're able to tell this is because everything then plays out online. The girls start, it's this, they can't but help live their life online. It's Twitter, it's other social media, it's Facebook, it's whatever else. They just don't seem to be able to stop sharing what's going on within the dynamic of the friendship of the three. Sheila and Rachel start dressing the same. And there's a whole series of photographs where, they both have striped tops on jeans. They both have, overalls on the same day. So there's that deliberate kind of us versus Skylar behaviour starts to come into play.
And
yes.
Am I right then in assuming that the drunken sex has become more than just a regrettable one-night stand?
It's not something that is ever talked about, but it's something that I think that perhaps Skylar is aware of, but nobody in the wider community. And in fact, both Sheila and Rachel are sexually active with their boyfriends.
So?
Yeah, right.
That's important. Whereas Skylar doesn't have a boyfriend.
They're experimenting.
And they,
Well, they were closet lesbians.
Well, possibly that, but they certainly. So, what starts to happen?
But she's
Sheila
the virgin.
She's themselves.
They're special or something.
I don't know that she's a virgin. I don't know that, but she doesn't have a boyfriend, and they certainly see her as a little bit more mature, a little bit sort of less, worldly than they are, because they've got the boyfriends, they're sexually active, and they seem to be the ones who drive a lot of the drinking and the weed smoking, and one of them is driving. So they're a little bit. I think one of them is actually a few months, like 6 months older. I think Sheila is 6 months older than Skylar, which is really not a hell of a lot in most situations. I don't think it really matters. But I think they start to see her and tell her, she's a bit of a tag-along baby.
Three's company.
3 is exactly.
2's company. 3's a crowd. 3. It's a hard lesson on 3's a crowd.
Too right.
Off your fuck, Alice.
So there is also sort of a belief.
She doesn't even go here.
Yeah. So Skylar starts to share things online without really sharing that whole idea of, when people put things on going, oh my God,
Skylar does
this, or, I know something. Yeah. So she's suggesting that she knows
nasty memes.
Secrets, so she just starts hinting on social media, like that she's starting to feel a little bit sort of miffed. But I know stuff, and if I said stuff, all of that kind of teenage girl BS. In spring 2012, both Sheila and Rachel are overheard in science class saying they wouldn't even care if Skylar died. And then they go on to say, we should kill her. But people, they were joking. What happens is it's an escalation online on Twitter of the girls arguing. They're just being bitches to each other. And in as much as Sheila and Rachel are awful, so is Skylar. They all are. Like at that moment, you wouldn't look at it and go, this is going to happen. You can just tell they're all just being catty.
It sounds like Heathers. Have you seen the movie Heathers?
It does. I haven't. That's all since I've seen it.
Sounds like Mean Girls, which is what I've been quoting for the last 10 minutes.
Well, it's cooler than that, I see. Isn't it?
Heathers is cool. Heathers is
Heathers
is way cool. Yeah, Winona Ryder.
Yeah. It's old. I had to look it up recently because it kept being a reference to something. Anyway, I actually can't remember when I watched it, but I'm
shut up,
probably the last 12 months. Because
yeah. Hurry up, Patty. It's Heather's turn. No, Patty, it's Heather's turn.
Oh, God, it's so convoluted.
Great Patty, Mom. I'm going to have to motor if I'm going to make this funeral.
Anyway, so there's a clear escalation to, the school community as such and the teenagers or else. I don't think that the parents are necessarily getting that vibe. And from the niece's point of view, as far as parents, they certainly see Rachel and Sheila as Skylar's very best friends, and they see them kind of like, their own daughters. And I believe it's Sheila, who doesn't even knock on the front door, walk straight in the house, as always does though, where she spent so much of her life going to their home that it's a bit of a sanctuary. And as I understand, both the other girls' parents are divorced, and they saw a little bit of maybe a family unit. They were very comfortable at the Neese's house and spent an awful lot of time there. And again, particularly Sheila, because she'd had the corona with Skylar. So on Thursday, the 5th of July, 2012, Skylar returned home from her shift at Wendy's late about 10 p.m. And I think it's late on the school night, but it'd be school holidays or, that big summer vacation in the middle of the year in July in the US, summer holidays. So she came into the apartment that she lived in with her parents. She kissed her mum and then her dad, and then went up to her bedroom.
Did you kiss your mother with that mouth? Yes, she does.
Later that evening, so sometime between 10 and midnight, she must hear from Shelia and Rachel. And we don't know if they call. I don't know if they called her or they texted her, but they got in touch with her and said, "We're planning to pick you up. We're going to go joyriding." So Skylar sneaks out of her home, out of the apartment, and she puts like a little ledge in so she can crawl up out the window, and the window is left open when she departs. Then she sneaks out of the house and she goes and gets into Sheila's car. In the boot of Sheila's car is a shovel, clean clothes, bleach, and towels.
Just the usual things.
I wonder where they're headed.
Oh, God. How to host a murder?
Well, so that was like late, nearly midnight on Thursday, July 5th. I'm now going to take you to the next day when both her parents get up in the morning. They don't often see Skylar in the morning, so they didn't think anything of it. And after work, Mum and Dad go. It's, I think, early afternoon, just after lunch, where her father returns home so that I think she can take his car to her work later on. And it's at this point he noticed that Skylar's door is still locked from the inside, and when he has a look, he finds out her window is still wide open. So he packs it, he calls Sheila straight away, and because he told her is that where's Skylar? Like, her window's open, what's going on? And she says, "Oh, well, we did spent last night, and we did go for a drive, but we picked her up and then we went back, and I definitely saw, but we dropped her off. She should be at home," kind of thing. And then Wendy's, where she works, calls and says, "Where's Skylar?" So she hasn't turned up at work. The mum gets home and it all sort of starts to go a bit crazy. Sheila calls back again and changes her story and says that it wasn't just a phone call, it was a joyride they had the previous night, and she definitely picked Skylar up at 11 p.m. But she'd returned her after smoking a bit of weed, and it was no more than an hour, so definitely before midnight that she was home. And she said, but, she didn't want to upset you.
It was no more than a grand round.
So she was just, we were a bit high, but it was, she was so worried about upsetting you guys. We just dropped her off at the end of the road so she could just sneak in home so she wouldn't hear you guys. But, we took her home.
Did she though?
Next, Sheila and her mother turn up to the Neese's house, and they help them in door knocking. So they start going from house to house, have you seen Skylar? What's happening? We're just trying to find where she is. And it's around about this time, so again, this is the July 6th, the Meredith's Day, that Mary Neese is able to get in touch with, I don't know if you'd call it the superintendent, the apartment landlord, someone who's got access to the security footage of the building. And he's able to check that footage, and they can see Skylar willingly walk towards a car and get into a car. No one recognises the car.
Yeah.
In fact, they mistakenly describe it as an SUV, when in fact it's a sedan. So at this point, that car, which is pivotal, is misidentified. That's a really important point.
I thought you were saying no one recognises the car because they didn't know whose it was, not they had no idea what sort of car it even was.
They just muck it up. They just get it wrong. They misidentify. You can see
it's a Nissan Cube.
The car sits there for a while and then it heads off.
A shape-shifting Nissan Cube.
Mm-hmm.
As far as the police are concerned,
they're looking
no
for a
amber
different
alert is in because that child is not missing.
She's run
she
off.
Has voluntarily left the house. They think she's run away.
Yeah.
Say,
She's a runaway.
Give it a few days. She's a runaway. Yeah. She's
Oh.
probably met some guy online or some online, and she's probably
With
gone
no-
away for a couple of days. Like that would be all right.
I was
anyway.
going to say,
Yeah,
she's
with
still
no
underage.
evidence.
Yeah.
Oh.
Exactly. Oh my God.
Rather than
So-
looking at the facts, let's make up a possible alternative and stick with that.
Yeah. So we know, because I told you that it's Sheila's car. Can you imagine how lucky that girl is at that point that they don't know that Sheila's car? If they had have just, I know, we'll get onto that. And that just blows my mind. That really important thing when you've got the footage and they muck it up so badly. So what does Sheila do? Sheila plays the victim beautifully. She's online and she shared her thoughts. Oh, come back, Skylar. I can't do school without you. But also, there are moments when she starts out with tired of losing sleep over this. It's a little bit too hard.
It's totally headless.
I mean, it was about you, but now it's about me. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
It's not until 3 days later, on the 9th of
yeah.
July, that Sheila is interviewed. And to police, she doesn't seem overly worried about her missing best friend. And she just, she's just not that bothered. And I think
I ain't bothered.
clock
Face bothered?
Am
Me
I
bothered?
clock-
Am I bothered?
exactly.
With my
I'm
face all
bothered.
bothered.
Ain't
the
bothered.
concerned.
Mm.
Yes, they aren't. Yeah, but I
Okay.
think because she is ain't bothered, that they then start to think
This is a
something's
bit
not quite right. They have
low-res.
nothing else. They have nothing else as here. They're trying to find Skylar. Next, they attempt to interview Rachel, but they only can do a phone call with her because Rachel had departed by this point. Rachel had departed for church camp on July 7th. So just a reminder of the dates. The last time we see Skylar is at home on Thursday, the 5th of July.
2 days later.
Into midnight, early to the 6th of July. And on the 7th of July,
We're going to
Rachel's out. She's got
church.
2 weeks at Catholic church camp.
Catholic church
Church
camp.
camp, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
It
Thou
is important to
shalt
note, though, that
not-
on the 6th of July, during the day, she had posted photographs of herself with her mum and her mum's friends because they were having a boating day. So she's pictured in a bikini out and about on the 6th of July.
Did you say a
Before getting
voting
onto
day or a
church camp the
boating
next day.
day?
Boating.
Oh.
Boating.
out
I was
on
like,
the
what?
boat, on the water.
She's in a bikini? Is she a
the lake.
Republican? Yeah.
Yeah,
Anyway.
she's voting. Yeah.
She is asked or requested to come in for a face-to-face interview when she returns from camp, and she doesn't. I've written what? Because I just don't understand how you go, am I?
No, I'm at church camp.
No. Let me think.
And they actually have to sort of chase her up.
No, I don't want to do that.
When they do finally get to speak to her, she has, and this I've read this from one of the detectives, her story was absolutely identical to that of Sheila's, like nearly verbatim.
Almost like they made
Red
it up.
flag.
Maybe
together.
it should be. I should have seen verbatim actually,
Mm.
because it was totally rehearsed, and they were like, it was just they get exactly the same speech.
And did they say,
So
did
of
you
course,
have
the
a
police
brain
like,
tumour
"Oh."
for breakfast?
Yeah. Meanwhile, poor Skylar's parents are beside themselves. She has left her contact lenses. She's left the bench with the window open, which is here, and her phone charger. She didn't take any torch, taking nothing with her.
All the things
So
you'd
they're
leave if you were running away.
If you're a
Flag.
teenager,
Oh my
surely you
God.
take a couple of, I don't know, your contact lenses, your
Yeah.
phone charger,
Yeah.
your makeup, I don't know. Anyway, nothing, not a single thing. So they're convinced she has not run away. Something has happened to her. We then skip ahead about a month when the school year starts, the new school year. So this is probably, I don't have an exact date, but I'm assuming late August. It does say month there, so let's say mid-August. And it's at this point that Mary Neese is just beyond upset and can't find any answers about them locally. So she contacts the state police. And finally, the state police and the FBI start to work on this. And the reason for that is because they find out that there was somebody else that had gone missing in the area several months before. I don't see that ever referenced again. That was the reason
Yeah,
that I
not
read that
connected,
the FBI was
but
able to look at- yeah.
Yeah,
So
right.
that's why there was the FBI link.
Mhm.
And it's finally at this point that they review all the footage today, and somebody actually sees that although Sheila has said she turned up at 11 o'clock, and we wouldn't see her return, because remember she said she dropped it down in the road, there was no car anywhere near the apartment block at 11 p.m. However, there was definitely someone there after midnight picking someone up. So, meanwhile, at school, Sheila's continuing to play the victim. She's posting photos and she's really, really interested in the investigation. She continues to go over to the Neese's house. And at this point, the police say to the Neeses, I don't think you need to be able to, I don't think you should be sharing anything about the investigation with Sheila anymore. And the rumours really start to swirl. There is talk that Skylar had been at a party with the girls and then she had a heroin overdose. What? And then, of course, she died and they didn't know what to do with her, so they dumped the body. And when they say that wasn't necessarily the girls, that was just the people at the party. So that was the big rumour. And Sheila was publicly complaining that she was working alongside the FBI and the police. She was trying to help them find the police are watching her like a hawk, thinking it's not enough. We don't have enough. We don't have anything, but give it time. I think this will sort of play out. It quite often does. The murder is, isn't the ultimate way to cut that. It comes to their letter. But
Dear Diary, my teen angst bullshit now has a body count.
She is everything I hate about high school. Mull.
I read somewhere that I think it was the FBI set up a faux account out of maybe a nearby university for some really handsome young student, some guy, who they then managed to have him become friends with everybody so they could try and track the girls' I guess their vibe, their mentality, how were they handling what was being said online? So they were trying to get in amongst, what was being said in the community and see how they were behaving. But as I said, it's still, so Sheila is totally victim, really, very vocal about, trying to help find her best friend, whereas Rachel is becoming increasingly quiet, and it becomes apparent that she really doesn't have anything to do with it. And in fact, she never went to Skylar's parents' house, not once, which I think says a lot.
Yeah.
She starts shutting down. So in terms of the profile that used online, they could see that the girls are starting to behave in quite different ways. And it's at this point they sort of go to Rachel and they say to her that they know that there was a lie told. And the girls are being caught out in a lie. Because the car doesn't come at 11 o'clock at all. It doesn't come until after 12. So at this point, Rachel changes her story and says, well, yes, after driving off, Skylar ran into the woods. And we went looking, but we couldn't find her. Lo and behold, guess who also changes her story to the exact same thing? Sheila. So now we've picked her up. We've driven around so he shows. We've gone into the woods and she's just her husband. We looked for her, we couldn't find her, unfortunately. And then we freaked out and we went home and, sorry about that. It is on the 16th of December, and it's taken a long time. This is July, and on the 16th of December, Mary Neese, who is Skylar's mother, she posts one of the longest things I've ever seen on Facebook, this huge piece. And I never read a small snippet of it because it's 5 times this long. And I suspect the police may have known that she was going to do this even, because it's quite full on, but it's quite damning to our friends Rachel and Sheila. So I'm just going to read that part of it. So this is already like reams and reams in. At this point, this is Mary, at this point, the investigation became top priority for the state police and the FBI. Interviews were being conducted and investigations were done in cell phones, computers, iPods, etc. I must make note that the Apple Corporation was contacted at this time with subpoenas for the FBI to disclose the last location that Skylar had used for iPod and Apple. Refused. They were contacted several times by both the state and federal levels, and to this day, they have refused to cooperate. We have been told that this could have been over months ago if they were willing to cooperate. Through these investigations, it was discovered that Skylar's 2 best friends that she had snuck out with were not telling the whole truth. They have continued to withhold information to this day and have been caught in multiple lies to both the state and federal authorities. The original belief was that they were in fear of retribution of the consequences of others. At this point, both girls have been offered immunity and still refuse to cooperate. The supposed bestest friends of Skylar's has even failed in a lie detector test. The other best friend, has not shown up for her testing or last interrogation. She conveniently disappeared and did not show up at her lawyer's office for her last appointment. These girls seem to believe that they are invisible and nothing will happen to them, but subpoenas and warrants are being issued for the next grand jury in January. Throughout all this nightmare, the girls have withheld information. In the beginning, her best friend would come to the house and cry with us and say that she wanted Skylar home. I loved these girls unconditionally and would have never dreamed they could be capable of things such as this. Yeah. I felt about them as my daughters. This is truly the ultimate betrayal. The other friend never showed at our house and has only contacted us on a couple of occasions throughout the past 5 months. It is appearing at this point, with all of the investigative information, that these girls are more guilty than originally suspected. It just sickens me to know that anyone at this young age could sit by and let their supposed best friend disappear in this way. If it was truly something that happened as an accident, they have had every opportunity to come forward with this information and have even been offered immunity. At this point, it looks like foul play has occurred and murder has not been ruled out. I cannot stress enough what this has done to not only Dave and I, but the entire community. There has been a huge outcry of love and support for us, and we truly could not have come this far without this love and support. It is time for these girls to come forward with everything they know. Our family needs closure to move on, whether that be with Skylar's remains or the best scenario, and that's Skylar herself. That is pretty major. So the whole community saw that. And you know what? Everybody went for Shelia and Rachel. Yeah. And I saw it. I was showing lawyers of things, and it was just like, you care, it's the how you're going to know something like that. But I mean, that is damning, right? Mm-hmm. It's shortly after this point that Rachel is hospitalised. She ends up in a psychiatric unit where she's threatened to kill herself. So that was the 16th of December was when the other thing happened. So somewhere between, somewhere late December.
There's just too many
on the 3rd of January.
Parallels to Heather's, aren't there?
Yes.
I
am.
So many. Like, it literally is.
That's why I laughed for a second when I remembered this is a true story, not Heather's.
On the 3rd of January, the police receive a call from Rachel's mother, and she's saying, my daughter's out of control. I can't handle her. She's screaming anyway, so they turn up, and she's just in an absolute state. And after a very few short questions, she says, we stabbed her. And so it comes that Rachel then reveals, she says, that they had driven out to the woods, they got out of the car, and they had an agreement that on the count of 3, they would stab her. Oh, so really? They counted 1, 2, 3, and they started to stab her to death. The police, Rachel and her attorney, immediately drove out to the spot where Rachel said the crime had occurred. But because it was early January, there was too much snow, so they were unable to pinpoint the exact spot of where the body was supposed to be. So at that point, there's still no body and there's no evidence as such, other than an admission. So again, the waiting continues. On January 16th, 7 weeks later, they returned with the canine unit. And it's at this point, silly around myself, but that was the job. One of the officers actually finds some skeletal remains. And so 6 months after her disappearance, Skylar is located. It's interesting to know at this point, Rachel is still free. So from the 3rd of January, she is still living at home, and I believe she's still going to school. I don't quite understand.
After she's confessed to murdering her.
Correct. And I still don't quite understand that, but she's not being held. And I don't think Sheila knows that she's done this. They're trying to get Sheila to confess. So I think they're using Rachel, which is a lot on anybody, let alone trying to get her to do that. But I can't find a lot of information around that. But I think it really struck me as, I can't believe that. But it is that she was free at that point. Wow. Because they were trying to use her. So at this point, so we're now late January, Sheila finally is given a search warrant, and they tell me to start looking at her phone. I mean, Cupboard had looked at it beforehand, but they really start to go a bit harder. Because now they know that they've got a body. But still, nothing's really going on with Skylar. On March 13, the body is finally verified. It was just so badly decomposed and it was such a state as Skylar Neese. That information is shared publicly, but they try and deliver them out. So all they reveal is that the post-mortem said that she had been stabbed 50 times, but no other details are shared. Sheila posts on that exact day, rest easy, Skylar. You'll always be my best friend. I miss you more than you could ever know.
Why are you such a mega bitch?
That's March 13. On April 1st, which you would think was an April Fool's joke.
Veronica, are you pulling my dick?
She actually posted, this is really important, so listen to what this is, because you might not even get it when I first read it. All she posted on April 1st was, we really did go on free.
Oh my
do you understand that?
Yes, I
Because
understand.
the first couple of times I read it, I missed it. We really did go on free. So it must have been a rumor, there must have been talk, or someone must have said it, and she's obviously just gone, yeah, whatever. We really did go on free.
Oh my God.
1, 2, 3, go. Yeah. On May 1st, Rachel surrendered herself to authorities, and she surrendered based on murder in the second degree, and it was agreed that she would testify against Sheila in all trials. In exchange for that, the prosecution agreed to a sentence of only 20 years. And at this point, they can then go and arrest Sheila. So Sheila is then arrested, and she maintains that she is not guilty. And she maintains that she's not guilty until they're in trial, and just before it goes, she changes to guilty. And the reason I believe that she did that is because she did the crime. But
it was going to get caught.
The body was actually over the state line. It was in Pennsylvania. It was no longer in West Virginia. So she was also going to be
federal
charge paid from that as well. So there is footage that you can probably find online. I find it so emotional to watch. So it's when she's being given like the verdict, and she's again just being next and trying to say to her, this is what you're saying. You expect to understand. So yes, and she's yes, I have to say yes, and to the judge. And then the father gets up and speaks. But it's just so sad. It's like, what have you done? Why would you do this at your age to anybody, let alone her? This is just a loss of 3 lives, you stupid girls. And no one's angry at this point. It's just this, I don't know, it's like it's so quiet and just it's so tragic and sad. It's just like, didn't have to be like this. What do you really, really, really know what you did? So she is found guilty of first-degree murder, and she's imprisoned the rest of her life for her natural life. But there is a thing there but you get a thing for mercy. So she is eligible for parole after 15 years. And it's at that point that, her parents obviously pleased, but the death swears that he'll be at every single parole hearing so that she'll never get it through. So I'm going to have an update because last year, Rachel was up for parole, the one who got the second degree sentence. Yep. And I just found the thing that really, really bothered me, and it's just, I don't know, when you expect to see photographs of people after being incarcerated, but you want to see it look like these bees.
They got haggard.
Yes, not these pairs.
Oh, no.
I'm not getting that. These pairs have had their hair done. They've got their eyebrows cut. They've got makeup on, and I smile. Well, certainly Sheila is clearly smiling. I just cannot deal with those shots at all. It's like,
there is no
what
remorse.
an insult. I don't understand why they should not have been shared. No.
Okay.
I don't know why they didn't be shared. That really, isn't it funny how something just really gets in? Yeah, and you look at her parents. Oh my God, you look at Skylar's parents. I saw a photo of them, her holding the photo when she first gone missing, and I'm like, I had to go back and do a double check because the mother, oh my God, being at that woman's age, I had to I just downloaded a check. That's who I was still looking at. Meanwhile, these girls have, grown into young women, and it's like there's a bloody salon in there. Have you seen this? It's unbelievable. It's that obvious.
Well, I have seen Orange Is the New Black,
shiny.
and there is a salon in there, but anyway.
I should have gone to Wentworth.
Yeah, maybe that's the sentence. Hold on to that.
Cell block H, yeah.
So I would just tell you what Rachel said when she had her parole hearings. When asked what she would say to the family, Rachel Shelf said in a statement, "I can't express how sorry I am for what I have done and for the pain I have caused. I loved her. I know what we did was terrible, and there's no word to describe the pain that we caused, and I may lose something I can say or do. I just pray to them all the time and pray for peace in their heart. I would trade places with Skylar so she could be with her loved ones. I just want them to know how deeply sorry I am I'm in a terrible state that I can't change, but I'm not a bad person because I made one bad choice.
Delusional.
They had to kill her on a certain day. They had to kill her before Rachel went to church camp. So they had a deadline. They had to work before that. She was going on the 7th. That's why they did it on the 6th.
Murdering your friend is not one bad choice. Oh.
As the dad said, just another task to mark off a list, like standing over my child saying, "Die, bitch," as my baby girl took her last breath. And apparently the last word that Skylar said was, "Why?" Why? So that is the story of Skylar Neese. And if I had to entitle it, it would be Mean Girls. It is just horrendous to think that something spiraled to them feeling comfortable enough to murder their own friend. Don't they just ghost people? Isn't that a bit, healthier? Oh my God. I saw a couple of comments that there's people saying, thank you to my best friends who already share one of us who are, trying to reach us to the ghostly. Thank you for not staying to death.
Oh God.
Right? Crazy. Based on that, there are a couple of things that happened on the way through where I would have things would have been resolved absolutely quicker. I still am really surprised by how long some of these aspects played out, given it seemed very apparent that it was Sheila. It was her car. In the end, they were able to match DNA to his blood and her. But I don't know that they just keep waiting on her to what it was her time. I find that really hard to get my head around. I really do.
It's a lot. The whole thing is a lot. Like we've made Heathers references. Heathers is a dark comedy kind of thing, so it's a lot of high school drama. Murders happen, suicide, all this. So it's
Mean Girls
is
a light version of it,
right? Yeah, right. This though, like at one point I was going to reference the Slender Man story that we did, where there were 3 kids.
It's very similar.
Except I can understand the motive in Slender Man as much as that whole thing.
I think
really
when we covered that, Carla and I did not believe that motive was correct. Carla and I said, no, they were just bitches being bitches. It's exactly the same as this. It's just 2 girls. And I think in this case, you've got 2 girls probably either experimenting or with lesbian tendencies.
One of them is a lesbian. I don't know if they both are. But I mean, but then I think, well, you know what? You've grown up in prison, girls. Yeah, exactly. Right? Yes, you're that's in exactly a world right. Where you wouldn't know one way or the other anymore.
Of course you're going to have sex with women when you're in jail, whether you want to or not.
Yeah.
Anyway,
consent.
As I understand it, again, I've seen Orange Is the New Black. So that's where all of my prison references come from. But I think probably. I mean, even if they were bisexual, it doesn't really matter. I think there probably was a idea that there was a greater connection between the 2 murderesses, and Skylar was in the way. And
I think that has kind of come out maybe in that parole hearing, because I think that there was no discussion early on about that being more serious than it was. And I do think that even if that was the case, I don't believe it was to that extent.
Well, they were just embarrassed that she'd seen it, possibly, and didn't want her telling anyone.
And when I think she was saying at one point that she might share, she knew lots of stuff about people. But when it came to actually murdering her, they didn't say that at the time. They just didn't. They just said, we just didn't like her anymore. And I don't think that they liked her anymore. Yes, I think she might have had some stuff again that, she could potentially use against them. But they didn't want her around. They didn't like her.
I mean, all of that, but why murder? How do you go from all of that to the only option we've got, or the best option we've got, is to stab someone 50 times? Like, what? Yeah. Like, that's it. There's people who stab someone 50 times through an awful lot of trauma, and they, it's their last resort, the last way of dealing with everything they've gone through. These bitches have gone through nothing.
No,
they don't do nothing though. There's no trauma.
There's something psychotic
done what
about
they've
them.
Wanted to do.
Not necessarily trauma triggered. Look to the point that, and I saw the images while you were talking, Carla, of the girls with their hair done and their big smiles, and I thought, There is absolutely no remorse. You're not sorry for what you did. You're kind of okay with where you're at in some ways. And I'm not looking at someone who's suffering a punishment.
No,
I'm
not
seeing
at all.
someone who's actually ballsily proud of it. I'm thriving here in jail.
I'm stunned. Absolutely. And I was like, I've never seen like a glow up, as they would call it. My God.
Oh.
You know, there's nothing that they look like they're remotely unhappy or suffering at all. Like, I really am shocked by those photographs.
We talk about white male privilege a lot in society, and this to me just sounds like two little privileged kids who think that the rules don't apply, who think they can do what they want. And poor Skylar, who she hasn't done anything. And like her last words, why? Like, right?
Hideous.
After hearing everything that I've heard, I still can't work out why. Like, what do you mean?
Because we're little monsters who are just...
They were a pair of see you next Tuesdays, and that's what it comes down to.
Oh.
They really were. I mean, I know it's life imitating art, but they really were the worst elements, and the whole point of Heathers and Mean Girls is this sort of behaviour.
Yeah.
And, you know, like you look at Heathers and you think, oh, you know, people don't murder everyone and all that sort of stuff. But, yeah, actually, as it turns out, they do on some occasions.
The only thing about Heathers is that there were people killing these two of the school, you know, the
bad ones.
Well, yeah, you know,
but don't you think
Ryder and what's his name, Christian
JD? Don't you think they became the problem though, going around killing all the mean girls?
Well, I think they talk about, you know, it's a lot about the different factions in high schools, but I guess what I'm saying is that those two were the ones killing the Heathers, who are these girls are like Heathers. They're just. Fucking so
I know.
Awful.
Wouldn't it be nice if it was more like Ferris Bueller, where you got the nerds and the dwerbs and the skaters and the, you know, like when the school secretary lists out the different factions in the high school. Yeah.
Or West Side Story, where there's the Sharks and the Jets or whatever.
When you're a jet for the first cigarette.
All of that. Like back in the day, you could not like someone without having to kill them. What? Where did that come from?
A boy like that wants one thing only, and when he's done, he'll leave you lonely. He'll murder your love. He murdered mine. Just wait and see. Just wait, Maria. Just wait and see. Oh, Anita, no. Anyway, it's your fault.
Well
you introduced West Side Story to the conversation.
Yeah, but I love it, and I love what you did with it.
Sorry, Swanny. A little musical
like that.
And of course, Heathers is a musical. And the only line I know from it,
now.
It is now. And the only line I know from it is because the girls would go around, my nieces that is, singing bits of it. But then there's this bit where they go, shut up, Heather. That's the only thing I know from it.
Yes. God. And no, you also know why you're pulling my dick, Veronica.
But I got that from you years and years and years ago.
Yeah.
Heathers.
Yeah.
Veronica, why are you pulling my dick? Yeah. I think I'll go first on the sentencing because we have a little bit of time to think about it. And I think I'm going to sentence the Heathers in this story, being Shelia and Rachel, to live with Slender Man.
Oh, nice. Wow. Oh, no, hang on, because
that's very good.
No, that's a goal law. You don't want him to live with him. You want to live in the community that he's terrorizing.
All right, fine. I thought the fear was that he would take them. Well, they wanted. I can't
become his proxy, and so you go and live in his mansion, and then you're all okay.
Oh, okay.
You're in Slender
Well, you
Man's
remember
mansion,
it because
so
you researched it. So okay, all right.
Yeah, you want to live the park.
I want them to be harassed by Slender Man. Then, yeah,
get on his radar.
And if they are of the sexual proclivity of preferring the ladies, I want them to develop an odour that makes them very unattractive.
Right. Oh dear.
I mean, armpit odor, of course.
But anyway. I didn't pick it as that.
I mean, you could give that to them regardless of their sexuality, right? Because
but I feel like whatever happened that Skylar allegedly saw is the root of the problem here. And their reaction to it, their fear, their, like, obviously if one of them is in a relationship now, but their possibly at the time homophobic attitudes created the impetus to kill that girl. And that's why if that's where they are now, I mean, I'm not as you would know, got no issue with what people want to do with consenting people. But
Of
I
course
just
not.
think as a punishment for them, if that's really what, makes them happy now with their lovely hair and everything, well, I hope they just smell like something very abhorrent.
Any thoughts on what that might be, or you just leave it
I
at that?
stopped. You must have
I think
heard
we'll leave it at that. Yeah,
the mini
we're
pause before I inserted the words something abhorrent.
Yeah.
I think that my punishment where I was at is somewhere similar, because when they saw those photos and where they've ended up, it's like, I don't know that that's really working in terms of what I'm hoping for them to be punished. So
that's not really
for
working
starters,
for
I
me.
think it feels like they've sort of landed on their feet in some way.
Yeah.
It's like, well, actually,
we're
we're in
celebrities
a
too.
correctional facility. Correct. We are. I just think that needs to be taken away from them. I don't want them to look in a way that they feel good about, and I don't want them to be allowed to be so attractive and dolled
punished.
Exactly. There's no. What's the punishment if you
Some
end up becoming like a
consequence for what
power
they did.
lesbian and a bloody? It's like, it must be like a free for all. It's like, hang on a tick, this has not worked out very nicely.
Free for all.
I just think that they need to have that stripped back. I want them to be ostracized, and I want them to feel unattractive, and I want them to be unappealing. Whatever it is, that other people are just not interested in them. Because I think that, they just seem to have lucked out. It's like, oh, yeah, this is all right. That really bothers me.
Yeah.
It's like the punishment in terms of the sentence was fine, but they seem to have, they need to get to a worse prison for starters.
They need some proper come-a-tuppence, and they haven't got their come-a-tuppence.
Correct.
Agree.
Clarky, anything to add?
Yeah, a little bit. So I haven't seen them, and I don't want to, but it sounds like they are maybe attractive, or they're, but they don't look.
They're all right. They're
groomed.
They're groomed.
They're well groomed for someone who's in jail. Like, they've clearly had, access to hair dye and a curling wand and makeup. I have a problem with that.
If I think about what my mate Eileen Warnos, looked like in her prison time, that's what we expect here. We're expecting someone who looks like they've had a tough time roughing it out. And we're not getting that.
But it gets hard. Yeah.
It's a good parallel to draw, because I think, we spoke about Eileen Warnos and the trauma and the life that she led her to that.
Her crimes kind of were not understandable, but they were understandable. This is not. You're right.
Yeah. No, and so these girls, to me, I reckon they're some of the worst.
They're evil
people that we have spoken about. That the fact that without cause they would murder their best friend and then act like they don't know anything about it, do all of that woe is me social media bullshit, like literally zero remorse. There's no reason for them to do what they've done. So to me, the reason I was getting to this is they are ugly on the inside, and I would love to be able to put that on the outside, right?
So instead of, so it's like at the moment, they're like the portrait of Dorian Gray. Let's find their actual ugly portraits and expose them to the world.
Yeah, like, bubbling skin maybe, and, everything that, you alluded to it with the odor, and I think the odor can be more than just downstairs. I
didn't say downstairs.
No, you didn't. But the whole package just needs to be repulsive to the point where people go.
I wasn't talking about their lady gardens. Anyway, yeah.
Well, I think you may have been hinting at that.
I don't allude to lady gardens. Yeah, no, I know. Just that people at first glance.
Garden under the sea.
Allow people at first glance to see the hideousness of their natures.
How exactly right. Yeah. How horrid.
I think what I expected to see was this: they've grown up, and I don't know, that you could see that there was the weight of their poor choices.
Yeah.
I just didn't see that at all. I don't see it at all.
I'm sorry, a couple of poor decisions doesn't make me bad. Yeah, it does,
right?
Actually. A couple of poor decisions are, I'll have another drink, right? And look, there are people who will take a poor decision where they have another drink and they might drink and drive and kill someone, and that is terrible. But this was premeditated.
Correct. It's not one bad decision, was
100%.
it?
I've got to do this before I go to church school or whatever it is, and we'll do it on the count
We
of
have to
three,
do it
blah,
this
blah,
day.
blah.
Yeah.
And she's reading
The only reason that Rachel had the second degree business is simply because obviously there was a plea deal to get her to testify against Sheila. But she should have got first degree murder also. They were both as complicit as one another.
I also want the social media accounts to have a filter over them. So whenever they tell a lie like that, it interprets it and puts it into the truth. So,
ChatGPT over it. Like, you know.
Like
that's good.
AI.
Oh, you were always my best friend. Actually, you're the victim of my
and I've got
it.
I've got it. The other day I sent you a picture that AI had generated of someone's hand and there were 6 fingers and one had a fingernail.
Yes.
Maybe we recreate them with AI because AI is not quite right yet. So then they end up with 6 fingers and sort of they're slightly out of proportion. That way, every time someone looks at them, they go, there's something not right about that person. You know, so
stay away from them.
Yeah. So there you go. They've got the AI version of them. Oh my God.
And lots of red flags.
Disgusting.
All right, Swanny. Well, that's the
story of Skylar Neese.
That is officially the first story that I also had in my portfolio. So that's our first crossover. We're at 133 or 134 episode, and first time, but I hadn't actually written it up. So well done.
I love it. I'm sure you've got like an expanding file with all of your stories. I remember none where I'm like, I'm going to find this story and I'm panic trying to find it. And you're like, but with your be like, no, I don't know. And a bit more development.
Yes and no. Yes and no. There are some things that catch my eye, but there's not enough in them. Yeah. And I actually found that about that story. I didn't feel there was enough in it to kind of.
It was short, wasn't it, for me? It was a short one for me.
The actual telling of the story was pretty short because there's not that much in it, but it is disgusting and it should be told. Yeah. Good one. All right. Well, thank you very much, Swanny. And as we say every week, miss you already. Ciao.
Ciao.
Thanks for listening to Trial by Wine. You can contact us at trialbywine@gmail.com. Please rate, review and subscribe to Trial by Wine on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts. If you'd like to support us, you can become a patron at www.patreon.com, Trial by Wine, or visit our website www.trialbywine.com to donate to us. Your support will help us cover many more cases and apply wacky sentences. We really appreciate you listening and hope you tell everyone about us. Our cover art is by John Christo and music is by Beauchamp from pixabay.com.